Hey, I'm Daria. Welcome to the video tutorial on how to make this playful Chanel style dress. Just to clarify right away, the tutorial for this pattern will be divided into 2 videos, because when making a tweed dress, the preparation takes even more time than the actual sewing. And this is part 1, where we'll focus on how to properly prepare all the fabric pieces so your dress turns out flawless. In part 2, we'll go through the sewing process. To make this exact dress, you'll need my new sewing pattern Chanellette. However, this video could also be very helpful if you're making any other dress with a button closure or any dress made from tweed. The Chanellette is a fitted line dress with an A-line skirt and a front button closure along the center front. It features 2 lined patch pockets decorated with buttons. The pattern is designed for bouclé and fancy tweed fabrics. Also, the pattern includes 3 bust size options, as all my latest patterns. I also tried to make it in denim, and I love how it turned out as well. In this version, I added lining down to the waist only, and of course, feel free to get creative with it. You can add any embellishments you like. Let's take a look at which materials work best for such Chanel-inspired dress. I recommend avoiding very thick fabrics. For example, I'll be using this cotton tweed, and it's quite lightweight. But you can see that the weave is quite dense. There's no obvious holes in the fabric. For the lining, I'm also choosing a lightweight lining fabric for dresses, not a heavy suit lining. Very often this type of lining also contains elastane, so it has a little bit of stretch, and it's usually slightly sheer. Our goal with this dress is to avoid making it heavy and thick. We want the tweed dress to stay light to be wearable in summer. The only exception is if you want to make a warm winter dress and wear it layered over blouses. Here's another fabric option that I would personally choose for this dress. This viscose cotton tweed paired with a thin viscose lining. I think I'm going to make one. Fusible interfacing is extremely important for this dress. I'll be using several different types, and there are a few important details to keep in mind. For this project, I'm using a very lightweight fusible interfacing. Very often, it has a silk-like base. We will apply interfacing to all the areas that need extra strength and stability, but at the same time, we want to keep the dress light and not make it too heavy. That's why choosing a thin interfacing is essential. Also, if your tweed fabric frays a lot, you may need to fully interface all of your pattern pieces. For example, if I were using this fabric, I would interface every single piece completely. We will also need this type of stitched fusible interfacing to reinforce certain areas where we absolutely need to prevent the fabric from stretching. You can use either a wider fusible interfacing like this, or a regular stay tape if you have one. Soon I'll show you exactly how to do this, but first we need to prepare the fabric and cut it out. The best way to prepare tweed is to thoroughly steam the entire piece of fabric on both sides, using a lot of steam so it can shrink in advance. I always do this along the grain line, almost without touching the fabric. And then I let it dry slightly. I don't pull or stretch the fabric right afterwards so as not to distort it. If you don't have a steam generator that produces a lot of steam, you can simply use a spray bottle with water. It will work in a very similar way. Just lightly mist the fabric, then press it and let it dry slightly before moving on to the next section. I do the same thing with the lining fabric. Because I'm not planning to machine wash this dress with regular laundry, I'll be hand washing it. For that, this preparation is more than enough, although you can also pre-soak the lining if you prefer. Once your fabric is ready, the next step is to match the pattern, so that when we cut everything out, all the lines will align beautifully. I have this on my fabric as well, and I'll show you exactly how I do it. But this step is especially important if your fabric has a very obvious pattern, such as checks, stripes, or any strong horizontal lines. Don't skip this part. It makes a huge difference and gives your garment a much more professional and high-quality look. So what exactly do we do? I match the lines all around the fabric and I start from one edge. And maybe you'll notice there is extra fabric forming when the lines are matched due to cutting in the store. This is how I find the center line of the fabric where it becomes symmetrical, so I begin from the center line and then I pin everything in place. I'm using thin pins with this type of head, but especially if your tweed is very textured or colorful, I recommend using pins with a more visible ball head so they don't get lost in the fabric. Along the edges, I check as far as possible to make sure the lines match, and I also randomly open the fabric closer to the center to double check the alignment. And every time I need to shift the fabric slightly to match the lines at the edges, I smooth it out by hand along the entire width or length to increase the chance that the pattern will align nicely in other areas as well. I check if the fabric lines look visually straight and as even as possible across the entire piece. Now it's time to place the pattern pieces on the fabric. Again, your layout will depend on the pattern your fabric has, whether you can place pieces upside down and whether your fabric has a clear top and bottom direction. But the most important thing is to make sure the same pattern line runs across the waistline on every piece. On the pattern, the waistline is marked, and there are also notches on the center front piece. I align all the pieces so that one chosen line of the fabric goes exactly through the waistline on each piece. This way, both above and below the waist, the rest of the pattern will naturally match as well. The hemline here is not straight, it's slightly curved. So with this pattern, it's not reliable to align everything based on the bottom edge. The waistline is the best reference point here. To make the front pattern look clean and symmetrical, make sure the center front line follows one chosen stripe or one specific space between stripes, so the dress is properly centered. Double check that the same line continues both above and below this piece. Make sure there are no pins in the way before cutting, so you don't hit them with your scissors. And once everything is placed correctly, I cut out the main pieces. However, smaller pieces like the pocket and the back facing, I don't cut out precisely yet. For now, I only cut a rough section of fabric for them. Keep all the fabric pieces pinned together with the paper pattern. It's best to handle them as little as possible and move them very carefully. And now we'll start applying interfacing, beginning with the smaller pieces, and this is how we'll finish our tweed cutting. I first fuse interfacing onto an area approximately the size of the pocket piece. This is very easy to do with this type of lightweight interfacing. The pocket should definitely not stretch across the width, so the stitch lines go along the width. And then I cut out the pockets, making sure the edges follow the pattern lines perfectly. This looks much cleaner and also makes the sewing process easier. And of course, I always double check that both pockets are identical. I do the same thing with the back neck facing, but here I use a different type of interfacing, a lighter one, so the piece doesn't become too bulky. Always make sure to cut notches at the center points. Now we also need to apply interfacing to the front facing, using the same type of lightweight interfacing. Carefully move the center front piece of the dress onto the ironing board. I simply place it on top and roughly cut out a section along the fold, so I can interface both pieces at the same time. This interfacing should definitely extend from the outer edge of the facing all the way to the center front line, and it can even go slightly past it. Carefully remove the paper pattern and fuse the interfacing. We also need to reinforce the shoulder area, so I apply interfacing about 8 cm down from the shoulder seam. I cut one wide strip around 8 cm and I'll use it to reinforce all of the front and back shoulder pieces. It's also very important to make sure the neckline and the shoulder area don't stretch. For this, I use this type of stay tape. You can also cut narrow strips from a similar fusible interfacing. I place it along the neckline and I make clips in the curved sections about every 1.5 centimeters, so it can follow the neckline shape smoothly. We also need to reinforce the section where the buttonholes and buttons will be placed, so the buttonholes won't stretch out over time. For this, we need to fuse a strip of interfacing, cut it so the non-stretch direction runs along the buttonholes. This strip is about 5 to 6 centimeters wide. I measure where this section is located on the pattern, and then I place and fuse the strip directly onto the fabric. You can make this strip even wider, all the way to the fold line, especially if your fabric is unstable or stretchy. For the hem, I cut 6 cm wide strips of interfacing for all the main pieces. Since we are using a 1 cm seam allowance on tweed, we need to reinforce all edges. I cut 2 cm wide strips and fuse them along all the vertical seam edges. If you're using different fabric, you can skip this step. You can also use fusible stay tape for this. This helps prevent fraying, and it also keeps the seams nicely pressed and laying flat. We also need to reinforce the pocket opening area, the place where the pocket will be attached. For this, I use the markings on the pattern and I fuse a non-stretch strip of interfacing exactly along that section. I extend the interfacing strip on 1 or 2 centimeters from each side. I carefully flipped the pieces over and did the exact same on the other side, without separating the two pieces yet. Now I place the paper pattern back on top, because at this point I can cut the notches along the interfaced edges. Now they will stay visible and won't fray or shift. You can also prepare this piece right away and press the fold along the fold line. Fold the pieces between 2 notches and fold it, and you'll clearly see where the fold line is. Also, to make everything very precise, I double check on the pattern exactly where this fold line should be, so I can start pressing it at the correct distance from the bottom edge. And if you cut everything correctly, this fold will follow one of the fabric's pattern lines, which is very convenient. As you can see, the fold line is at an equal distance from the edge, which means everything was cut very accurately, and the center line will be straight and consistent throughout the front length as well. On the front side piece, we need to do the exact same preparation. It's very important to keep this bias cut section from stretching or distorting, so we stabilize it right away and reinforce the shoulder section with an 8 cm wide strip of interfacing and stabilize the armhole so it won't stretch, the same way we did with the neckline. Also reinforce the hem and all vertical edges. We also need to interface the shoulder edge itself, so it won't stretch out. Also, don't forget to stabilize the pocket placement section, using the markings on the pattern. This pocket line here won't be perfectly horizontal, because the skirt has some flare. Just keep that in mind that it's okay. The pocket will match the front piece fabric pattern when you sew the pocket on the front piece of the assembled skirt. Repeat everything from the second side and transfer all the notches from the paper pattern. Repeat the same steps on the back pieces as well. Armholes, shoulders, hem and vertical edges. When you apply interfacing along a curved line, focus on shaping the strip around the outer curve, so it lays flat and smooth. Then overlap the clip sections based on how the outer edge sits, following that larger curve. Open the center back piece carefully, making sure not to damage the curved neckline. And after you apply the interfacing, don't forget to cut the notch at the center back. Here are all of our interfaced pieces. Now we need to overlock all raw edges except for the armholes on both the front and back pieces and the front and back neckline edges. Carefully separate the layers and trim away the excess interfacing along those curved areas that we won't finish with an overlocker. Any other excess interfacing will be easy to trim later while overlocking the pieces from the right side. Finish with an overlock all raw edges except for these curved lines of the armholes and neckline. This will give us strong, clean edges even though we are using only a 1 cm seam allowance. It's very important not to stretch the fabric, as this can distort the edges. Be especially careful on curved areas. Don't trim too much on the overlocker, only cut off any excess interfacing and loose threads, but never reduce the seam allowance. Look at how the notches appear now. They are still visible and easy to find, but they won't fray because they are protected inside the overlock stitching. After finishing all the edges, it's important to check the pieces and make sure they haven't become distorted during overlocking. If anything looks slightly stretched, I gently press the freshly overlocked edges and I carefully check the most delicate areas, for example around the neckline, to make sure nothing has been pulled out of shape. If a section did stretch a little, it's usually very easy to shrink it back into place using steam. Now we can mark the most important construction lines on our prepared pieces. It's essential to mark the center front line on both front pieces. I can mark it with chalk on the wrong side and then baste it through so the line becomes visible on the right side as well and still be visible until the end of our sewing. These stitches will remain in place so that you can try on the dress and pin along these lines to check the fit. The center line is 3 cm away from the folded edge. Ideally, it should align with one continuous line in the fabric pattern from top to bottom. That's exactly what we achieved here. Both center lines match the same line, so once the dress is buttoned up, the pattern will align perfectly. Optionally, baste the placement of the buttonholes on the right center front. We also need to mark the pocket placement lines on both the center and the side pieces. I'm making a bar tack exactly at this point marked on the pattern. You can also sew a small cross stitch here instead. After all the preparation steps, I double-check that the pocket opening line is at the same level on both pieces, and that the fabric pattern matches, assuming we cut everything correctly. And here you can see that we did cut it correctly, because every line matches beautifully from the hem all the way up to the pocket area. Now the main fabric pieces are ready, and the only thing left is to cut the lining. This part is simple. Cut the lining using the lining pattern pieces and make notches in all the marked places. It's best to cut the lining after you've already assembled the main dress and had a fitting, so if you need to make any adjustments, you can cut the lining with those changes transferred onto the pattern. That's why I don't recommend cutting the lining immediately together with the main fabric and included it at the very end of this video. There is just one important detail. It's best to transfer this specific point onto the front side pieces because it will help you match and sew this shaped piece accurately together with the next piece. So this was a detailed video showing how to prepare all the pieces in order to sew a truly high quality, beautiful dress. Meanwhile, I'm saying goodbye to the sewing room where I've been sewing for the past few years. I'm very grateful for all the time I spent here, but now I'm moving to a new space that inspires me even more. See you soon in the next part in my new sewing studio and we'll assemble the dress together.